Have you ever wondered how many goddesses have been lost to time, buried in ruins, erased from memory, their names surviving only as faint whispers in broken tablets or forgotten shrines? Today, we're going to step back into the ancient world and breathe life into the forgotten goddesses of antiquity. These were the divine figures who once shaped entire civilizations, inspired rituals, and guided human lives. Yet, as centuries passed, they were silenced, overshadowed by more famous gods, erased by conch. Now close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing in a ruined temple. The marble columns are cracked, ivy coils up their sides, and the wind sighs through the hollow spaces where worshippers once sang. You hear nothing now, except maybe, if you listen closely, the faint echo of voices that once called out to a goddess whose name has long slipped from memory. These deities were not just mythical characters. They were living forces for the people who honored them. They represented hope, fertility, pratis. Let us begin on the shores of the Mediterranean, in the great city of Carthage, where the goddess Tanit once reigned. Tanit, the celestial goddess of the Phoenicians, stood tall as the heart of Carthaginian spirituality. She was often depicted with outstretched arms, a crescent moon above her head, and a radiant star between her hands. Her temples rose proudly across North Africa. Inscriptions carved into stone invoke her name, begging for protection, for fertility, for victory. Roman and Greek writers. From the Mediterranean, we sail east into the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia. Here we meet Ninhursag, the Lady of the Sacred Mountain. You've heard of Ishtar, the fiery goddess of love and war, but Ninhursag is almost completely forgotten outside dusty libraries. And yet, she was one of the earliest goddesses in human history. She was the Earth Mother, the goddess of fertility, vegetation, and creation. Her myths describe her forming humans out of clay, breathing life into their fragile bod. Now let's gallop into the misty landscapes of ancient Gaul, where the goddess Epona emerged from Celtic belief. Epona was not a goddess of the stars or of lofty ideals. She was the goddess of horses. That might sound simple, but to ancient societies, horses meant everything: travel, survival, warfare, trade. Epona protected cavalry soldiers, guided travelers, and embodied freedom. When Rome conquered Gaul, the legionaries didn't erase her. They embraced her. Her statues were carried across the empire from... But our journey doesn't stop in Europe. Let's move into the lush, humid jungles of Mesoamerica. Here the Maya revered Ixchel, goddess of the moon, fertility, medicine, and weaving. Imagine her shrine on the island of Cozumel, glowing with candlelight as women crossed the waters to make offerings. Ixchel was often depicted with a serpent coiled in her hair, holding a spindle or pouring water from a clay jug. She was the patroness of childbirth, the healer of illness, the one who listened when mothers pray. And then, the River Nile. Everyone remembers Isis, Hathor, and Bastet, but very few recall Nepet, the goddess of grain. Nepet was the very spirit of harvest, tied to the green shoots sprouting along the fertile banks. She wasn't worshipped with grand festivals, but with humble prayers whispered by farmers as they sowed and reaped. Her image was carved into offering tables and woven into daily life. She represented gratitude, survival, and the miracle of food. But as time passed and dynasties changed, from Egypt, we turn to the rugged mountains of Anatolia. Here, in the ancient kingdom of Phrygia, a powerful figure dominated, Cybele, the Great Mother. You might think she isn't forgotten. After all, her name appears in some histories. But her true power, her ecstatic rituals, her thunderous celebrations have been erased or ridiculed. Cybele's priests banged drums and clashed cymbals in wild processions, calling out to the mother of the gods. She was a force of nature, untamed, primal and terrifying. Whoa! Further north and east in the lands of the Slavs, whispers still recall the name Mokosh. She was the goddess of women's work, spinning, weaving, fertility, and the hearth. Unlike Olympian goddesses who lived in glittering palaces, Mokosh was present in every household. Her spirit was in the fibers of wool, in the rhythmic pull of the loom, in the laughter of children, in the prayers of women asking for protection. With the spread of Christianity, Mokosh was demonized or absorbed into saints. But if you what do we notice in these stories? Tanit, Ninhursag, Ipona, Ixchel, Nepit, Cybele, Mokosh. They share something in common. These were not goddesses of distant thrones. They were close to the earth, tied to survival, to family, to fertility, to the pulse of daily life. These were the goddesses who mattered most to ordinary people, and perhaps that is why their names faded first. Empires prefer grand stories of war, kings, and thunder. The quiet power of the earth, the grain, the loom, the midwife, why were they forgotten? Part of it lies in conquest. When Rome razed Carthage, they tried to erase Tanit. When Christianity swept across Europe, Cybele and Mokosh were branded pagan demons. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the New World, Ixchel's shrines were destroyed. Another part lies in cultural memory. Stories that centered women, nature, and survival were seen as less important than tales of conquest and domination. And yet, these goddesses didn't vanish completely. Their symbols live on in Pho. And here's the beautiful truth. When we speak their names, even now, we bring them back, saying Tanit, Ninhursag, Epona, Ixchel, Nepit, Cybele, Mokosh. This is a form of invocation, a way of pulling their memory back into the light. And maybe that's why you're here, watching this video, because something inside you feels the echo of these silenced voices, asking to be remembered, not as dusty myths, but as living presences. So as you walk through your day, think of them. Think of Carthaginian women lighting lamps to Tanit, whispering prayers for healthy children. Think of Mesopotamian farmers leaving offerings of grain for Ninhursag, thanking her for the earth's abundance. Think of Roman soldiers, far from home, stroking small statues of Epona before charging into battle. Think of Maya women sailing to Cozumel, carrying gifts for Ixchel, begging for safe childbirth. Think of Egyptian farmers bowing their heads to Nepit as history is not just about kings, empires, and battles. It is also about the forgotten goddesses, whose temples may be rubble, whose stories may be fragmented, but whose presence lingers. These goddesses were never truly erased. They are waiting in the cracks of ruins, in the lines of folktales, in the symbols carved into stone. They live in the rhythms of nature, in the cycles of birth and death, in the whispers of those who still remember. So let us not forget them again. Let us speak their names, honor their stories, and carry their wisdom forward. For if we remember, even just for a moment, they are not lost. They are alive, glowing like embers, ready to catch fire in our imagination once more. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Feel free to share it with a friend who loves a good mystery. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you won't miss the next story. There's a lot more to uncover, and I'd love to have you along for the journey.